Hi, everyone. All right, we just invited Elizabeth on stage and we're going to invite her on camera. And Elizabeth, all you have to do is accept.
There you are.
Oh, there you are. Hello. And I'll pop up there too, although I don't really need to, but okay, sure, why not? Give me just
More the merrier.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, you as well. Hi, Susan. Hi, Amber.
Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to meet you. I'm excited for today.
I know, we're looking forward to the chat. So, all right, just want to make sure we've got things going here, and I am going to broadcast this. So give me just a minute and then we can get started.
Sure. Absolutely.
What's the weather like where you're at, Elizabeth?
Sunny, and today it was more like windy and cooler, but not quite cold. I feel like we keep going in loops. It keeps being like, you sort of think it's the beginning of winter, it's the beginning of cold weather, and then it's 60 degrees. So we keep going back. How about you? Are you two in different places?
We're both in San Diego, so we can't complain too much. It's been cold for me, but I think that's like low 70s. So yeah, I'm quite weak when it comes to the weather. So
yes. All right, I'm almost ready.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
I just want to make sure we broadcast this live so that anyone can join us.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Debbie. I see you in the audience.
I love that.
I know. All right. We're ready. Broadcasting live. Go for it, Amber.
Alrighty, so I guess we'll just get started. So, hello, Firesiders. Welcome to Adventures by the Book, where our mission is to connect people and communities through the superpower of books. I'm your host today, Amber Reinhart, and I'm also here with Susan McBeth, and we are going to be interviewing Elizabeth de Veer to chat about her new novel, or her latest novel, The Ocean in Winter, which I have a copy of right here.
Oh, yay. Me too.
Beautiful cover. Oh, I love it. And today's Fireside Chat is the fifth and final part of our Thankful for Reading series. So if you've been here the last couple weeks, we really appreciate you sticking with us all the way till the end, all the way into December, and we're so excited to be finishing off with Elizabeth. It's going to be an excellent chat today. And if you haven't watched our last 4 chats, you can go onto our YouTube channel. We've posted all the recordings there, and we are going to post this one as well today. So if you aren't here, listening to this right now, you can later. And our approximately 45-minute chat today with Elizabeth is intended as a conversation. So for those of you in the virtual audience or on the Fireside app, feel free to invite yourself up on stage anytime you want. We want this to be a conversation. So if you want to just say hi, if you have a question, please do not hesitate to jump on stage. We want to hear from you. And did you know that if you are in the live virtual audience, you can broadcast this conversation live by going to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. There's like a little circle button, and if you click that, you can click the world icon like Susan just did, and Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. And you can broadcast this live to all Firesiders in the audience. And for those of you who are listening on our social media pages, we really appreciate you tuning in. We are so excited for today. And without further ado, we are going to get started with our chat. Oh, and one more thing. If you want to purchase Elizabeth's book, which was amazing, by the way, you can go to the fortune cookie in the middle of your screen, and you can go ahead and purchase a copy on our website. We really appreciate that. So now let's get started. Elizabeth de Veer has a Master of Theological Studies from Harvard Divinity School and has been admitted to writing residencies at the Gentile Artist Residency, the Hambridge Center for Creative Arts and Sciences, and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. Very impressive. And The Ocean in Winter is Elizabeth's first novel and an unforgettable story about grief, love, and what it means to be haunted. The lives of the three Emery sisters, who we are going to be talking about in depth today, were changed forever when Alex, 11 at the time, found their mother drowned in the bathtub of their home. So there's a lot going on in this book. It is very complex. It has absolutely everything you could want in a book. It's a perfect holiday gift. Highly recommend, and I'm so excited to dive in with Elizabeth today. So welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really honored. I'm really happy to be here. And I've never done a fireside chat before. So this is new for me and really exciting. And I'm really excited to see these little faces popping up on the app. Hi, everybody.
Yes, it is very exciting. We're so thankful for you being here today. So we're just going to kick questions off with a pretty general question. So we want to hear a little bit more about you and what your life was like before you became a successful writer. So can you talk about where you grew up, your first exposure to books, and how you came to love to read and write?
Oh, absolutely. I actually grew up in Arlington, Virginia, but now I live in New England. I live in Massachusetts. And I would say from a very young age, I just loved a good story. You know, I just love any kind of a good story. It's a good story somebody tells me, a story about somebody's life, or something I read. But just sort of has to have that kind of hook for me. And I remember as a child going to the National Art Gallery in Washington, D.C., and it was just filled with these giant paintings, and they had these incredibly epic scenes, you know, like a ship in the ocean, and there's a war going on, and somebody's holding up a bloody head, and there are these beautiful classical paintings, and it's just like, what happened?
Yes. In the meantime, while we wait, I'll just go over some of the things that I picked up in the book that hopefully we will be able to talk about in just a little bit. So we definitely want to touch on the three Emery sisters. The oldest, I actually have my notes right here, so I can tell you a little bit about them. So the oldest in the book is Alex, and she's, as an adult, she's a nurse, and she can't have kids, so she's kind of struggling with that. And as a reader, you know, you feel for that, and you feel for her, especially with her having found her mom in the bathtub when she was younger. And then in the beginning of the book, she just traveled to India and is trying to embrace life. And then she finds out that she's inherited a farmhouse from someone she barely knows. And so that kind of pulls her back into Newbury, the town where she grew up. And, you know, she doesn't want to be there, but she feels like she needs to come back. So that's Alex. And the house is a whole, I really hope we can talk with Elizabeth, because that farmhouse is beautiful, creepy, I believe haunted, just an amazing structure. And then the second oldest is Colleen. She's the middle child. And she's a mother, and she's my personal favorite character of the book because she's kind of a perfectionist, and you can tell that she just wants to be like a super mom and be the best mom in the world. She has 2 teen kids, Ethan and Maddie, and she's literally a soccer mom, the perfect mom. Whenever she leaves the house, she tries to make sure that her kids have all the snacks and food and everything that they need. So she's always trying to control them and make sure their lives are perfect, because she didn't, her childhood was disrupted at such an early age. So that's Colleen. And then you have Riley, who's the youngest, and Riley is definitely going through it. She is a model, so she's very beautiful, but she is going through a lot of emotional and psychological, sadness. And so we find out kind of early on that she has a drug problem and she has an addiction, and that's a ripple effect from the death of her mother, and she's trying to process everything. So those are the 3 sisters. The story is told from their point of views, and it interweaves that. I'll accept that request. Hi, Elizabeth.
I see Elizabeth back. So
can I hear you, or are you out there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yay. Yeah, okay, we're not going to mess with the video at all because I don't want to jinx it again. So I don't know if you've been hearing Amber. She's been giving a nice outline of your book.
Yeah. Oh, fabulous, Amber. Thank you.
I was just telling the audience about the 3 Emery sisters, and I think we should just dive right in to my question about them, because they were so fascinating to read about. So I just told the audience a little bit about who Alex is, who Colleen is, and who Riley is. So now they have some context. And I told the audience, I don't know if you heard this part, Elizabeth, but Colleen is my favorite one. I think I'm a lot like her, so I related to her a lot. Yeah, I'm like, I always try to control things and make sure everything's perfect. So I thought, we'd probably be friends in real life. But my question to you is, each of these sisters were such strong protagonists in their own right. So why did you choose to tell the story through their 3 different perspectives, and which point of view was the hardest to write for?
Oh, what an interesting question. So the idea was, I wanted to talk about sisters, and because the idea is they live in that house, they experienced all the same events, but through such different lenses. And it's like they were going through the same things at the same time, and their experiences were so completely different from each other that they don't even know what it was like for each other. And initially I had 2 sisters, and then I kind of redid the whole concept from the beginning. And I kept thinking, is there another sister? I'm not sure. And then it literally was like I gave Riley the microphone and said, tell me your story. And she just came out blazing with this incredible story that I had no idea was there. So that's kind of where that came from.
Hers was the most raw, I thought. So I mean, they balance each other out so well, the 3 of them. So I couldn't imagine the story any other way. So thank you for creating her and bringing her to life.
Thank you.
I love that. And so next, I want to talk about the theme of loss of innocence. It's pretty prominent, and it comes up almost immediately in the story to the readers. And so just as a brief reminder, Alex, at age 11, finds her mother in the bathtub, and their life as they know it is it's over, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And as a child, I can't even imagine what that would be like. And on top of that, Alex and Colleen, they really had to take care of Riley, who I believe was 4 at the time when this happened. So Riley doesn't remember much of her mother. She has bits and pieces, but these 3 kids really had to grow up. And you can see, I mentioned this briefly before, but you can see how this traumatic event definitely impacted their adult lives. And so I want to read just a little bit from the book on Colleen's perspective. So in this little passage, she's talking about her daughter, who's a teenager at the time. And this can just give the audience a little bit about how this loss of innocence impacted her as a mother. So I'll go ahead and read now. My sisters are in trouble, and after all, wrong page. Next one, that will be the next quote, a little sneak peek. Oh, no, that's not Colleen, that's Alex. Okay, here we go. Here's Colleen. This child before me, this girl struggling to come into her own, who is this? Some say she resembles me, but as I look into those dark eyes, I see a young woman who looks like someone I have never met, a person in the process of becoming. She's feisty, she always has been. I admire that part of her, but she also has a jadedness, a world knowing, and a darkness to her that makes me worry. I have a bad feeling she learned that from me. So you can tell, from the audience, I hope you can tell Elizabeth's a fantastic writer, and I just love Colleen. So Elizabeth, my question to you from all of that is, can you talk a little bit more about the theme of loss of innocence and how you wanted that to impact the storyline of the sisters?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. And it's something when you're writing a story, every single, I'm sorry, I keep like having a thought and then going back. When you're reading about how to write, people keep talking about theme, and they do tell you that you can't sort of just have an idea for a theme and then write it. Like the theme kind of just comes in the story. It's really natural. And that particular theme just emerged on its own. Yeah. And in fact, is not even something that I gave that much thought to. Can you still hear me?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. All right. So I would say that theme kind of just emerged as just as a natural part of spinning a story about this family's life and making them as close as possible to what I've experienced about life. And I have a daughter who's now 11, but when I finished writing this, she was closer to like 7 or 8 or 9. And as she gets older, it really is this experience of looking at somebody that I've never met. Like she's a different person today from who she was yesterday. And and all these things that come out of her and that she puts into the world that you don't even expect and that you don't know is there. And it's just part of growing up. But when you're her mother, you remember all of the different qualities, all of the different stages they've been through and all the different people they've been before now. And as they get older and you see them kind of take on different points of view or different things from their environment, from their friends, from their teachers, and from us, good things and bad things. And it's like you recognize it. It's really a deep thing. But I would say that issue of loss of innocence is really, you're exactly right. It's just all a part of the moment they lost their mother and the new people that they had to become in order to deal with that new world. And that, in fact, for all 3 of them, it's an ongoing kind of constant like reinvention of self. Colleen, goes through so many selves in the course of this and kind of finds that she needs to face the biggest pains of her past in order to get beyond them. And that's the big message with her. And Alex, of course, just really wants to get away from the pain of her family and be off on her own. And it just is like she can't go any further away geographically than India, and fate is like a great big rubber band that just kind of like catapults her back across the ocean. It's like, you're not ready and this isn't the right path for you and you need to go back. And Riley is just, it breaks your heart because she's kind of spinning a little yarn about the life she leads in her mind and without any kind of touch of reality in with her thinking process. It's almost like she believes that if she can think a world into being, it could maybe be like that, but she can't even quite trick herself enough. So
I love that. I love those answers, and I'm curious, this just came to my mind right now, but is there a particular sister that you relate to the most when you were writing?
Yeah, I think I'm the most like Alex, just in terms of personality and I also traveled in India, and I also sort of always had this longing to just kind of like leave planet Earth and like, but not to another planet, obviously, but just like go and work on organic farms in, mid what am I thinking, Eastern Europe, and and just be a complete wanderer and a traveler and just make up my life one day at a time. And my husband and I traveled in India for a couple months, 22 years ago, and I realized, no, that life is actually really hard in its own way, and it was just as easy to, it would just seem like a better choice to not follow it. But I really understand that longing to kind of shed who you used to be by leaving the places where you have lived. So yeah, she's the closest one to me personally.
I was
And
just curious, do you have sisters, Elizabeth?
I do. I have a younger sister, and she is very different in her personality and her approach to the world from me. But they're just the two of us. But I can really understand that feeling, and I think families have this too. Just when there are multiple children, the older children just naturally end up sort of caring for the younger children. And sometimes that just adds to the person you are. But sometimes I think it also kind of takes away from being a kid.
Yeah, definitely. And when you're reading the book, your heart breaks, after hearing how happy Alex was in India, and she comes back and she's got to take on the house, which we will get to. We'll get to the house in just a little bit, because we have to. But she's also a great daughter to her dad, who's he's coping in a whole different way. So she still has to pick him up and be there for him and be there for her younger sisters. So you feel that, as she's the oldest. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into probably the most prominent theme that came up for me in the book, which was trauma and sensitive subject matter. So Elizabeth, you did not shy away from these topics: suicide, addiction, grief, even molestation. And it's no secret that the three Emery sisters are at a crossroads in their lives when the book begins. They each are on, a different path, and it brings them back together, even though it's a difficult one. And so, as we talked about before, especially Riley's story is it can be dark, it can be unsettling at some times, but it's important to hear. So I wanted to read a passage from her perspective, just to give the audience a brief glimpse into her mindset in the book. So I'll go ahead and start. This is from Riley, and she's the youngest. Colleen, however, I do not need to talk to. I stop walking and look at my phone. I'm so mad, I'm trembling. How does she keep finding me? Colleen, you have to leave me alone. You all have to leave me alone. Then I lose it. You are not my mother, I yell at the blank phone, and I grasp the phone in one hand and bash it against a telephone pole. If it were a bug, it would be crushed. If it were a person, it would bleed. If it were a pill, it would be in my veins, dissolved. So great writing, but also it's just, it's heartbreaking. Your heart really hurts for Riley. You see that she's trying to hide behind the pills that she's taking, the pain that she's feeling. So my question to you, Elizabeth, is can you talk about your motivation to highlight these really sensitive subjects in such a meaningful and respectful way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it kind of goes back to the theme that I started with, like the seeds that I started with this book is really about what does it mean to be haunted. And I just kept thinking about like carrying around baggage that is fused to your hands physically, and is in every part of your body and in every part of your life, so much so that you almost can't even see it anymore. You don't really think about it, you don't really name it, you don't really know it's there, but it's just a part of everything you do in your life. And I was just thinking about these girls and this grief, and that they lived in a time and had a father who was a lovely person, but did not, just it was an era for them when dealing with your feeling, like it was just better to move on from your feelings maybe and not really dwell on them so much, and that they were of an age when it happened that it just kind of, they had to just kind of pick up, do what they could to keep going with life. And so now they're grown-ups, and it has just become a part of everything in their lives, this grief. And they don't think about it that often that way. And so the reason that I talk about all of the all the different aspects of the trauma, of the experiences, is to sort of explain what a complicated grief it is to survive someone who's committed suicide. It really is its own particular thing. If somebody in your life dies of a disease or an accident, it's really an event that's completely separate from you. It has nothing to do with you. But when somebody takes their own life, you really have the belief that you could have done something to have helped them, or maybe you did something to push them in that direction. And even though I feel like the more people talk about these things and the more they talk about them with counselors, the more somebody can kind of walk you through that, no, it's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done in either direction to push somebody into it or pull somebody away from it. That depression and mental illness are their own creatures. And once you're sort of stuck in your head and once you're feeling a certain way, you can be helped, but not by your child necessarily. It's not a matter of being cheered up, and it isn't a matter of if you just come home a few minutes earlier, or if you'd just been better that day, or a better kid, if you'd gotten better grades or whatever. That it's a personal problem taking place in somebody's mind, just the same way that an illness or an accident takes place only in the body. And I really did want to get to that particular kind of grief that is embodied by all three of these women, and in such different ways. I really wanted them to be coping in really distinct ways, and they have their really distinct different journeys. And actually they have their distinct different journeys, but they all are tied in with becoming mothers and taking care of other people, and sort of both resisting it and embracing it and wanting it and not being able to do it in different, sort of different dances all around there. So it's like, even as they struggle with their own mother, their own mother's choices and their relationship with her, they're also struggling with becoming mothers. And so I just was trying to show the complexity of all that.
And I'm just curious too, how do you take such a difficult subject and not make your book too much of a downer? How it's a really fine line, right? To share the grief and the trauma, but not make it so depressing and difficult that the reader can't trudge through it. How do you walk that line, Elizabeth?
I don't know. I don't know, but if you say that I did do it, then I am hugely grateful, for sure. I, I, I suppose it just is a matter of focusing on the story going forward and keeping in mind that this is sort of a key piece of who these characters are, and but it's not necessarily unfolding in every minute, that there are other things going on in the minute to minute experiences, including very beautiful things. I mean, Alex's trip to India was a really beautiful experience, and I feel like Riley's journey around New York City with this, handsome private investigator is a beautiful experience, and so I guess that's how I did it, was just sort of to make sure that the grief was in the composition of the characters, but in the scenes that unfold are sort of in the reality of life, in lots of different and interesting ways. I guess that's what I did.
And maybe also weaving in, elements of hope and healing and as well.
Yes, for sure. It definitely gets there. We in this course of the book, it goes through a lot of darkness, but I feel like it's important for the sisters to face what has come before, because that's the only way that they're going to get to the next chapter. And Colleen, I guess they all have such different journeys, but I just felt like Colleen, I just kept taking things away from her until she was stuck in the little beach house in the middle of winter. But I feel like she gets to that moment where she's like, no, I'm ready. I'm ready to name what I've been through. I'm ready to talk about it with my children, and I'm ready to move on to the future now. And so so that's definitely something I was trying to do.
I love that. And yeah, the book is it's like life. It's got, there's really beautiful parts and there are really sad parts, but that's just how it is. And I want to remind everybody in the audience, if you click on the fortune cookie in the middle of your screen, you can read this right now and you will understand exactly what we're talking about if you haven't read it. And so switching gears here, I want to talk more about the world you created within the ocean in winter, specifically the research process that went into building it. So when thinking about the setting, we're talking about Newbury in the book in Massachusetts, which was both haunting and beautiful. I loved that. Talking about everything that you built, even small details like the pizza place that Alex has recommended in Rowley. How did you begin the research process of this book? And did you ever visit the places that you talk about?
Yes, I did. So I actually live in a small town called Georgetown, and then to the east of us is Rowley, and then north of there is Newbury, and a little bit north of there is Newburyport, and then if you keep going north, I think it's north, across the Merrimack River, then there's Amesbury. And these are places where we have good friends who live there. And when my daughter was very little, while I was writing the book, those were the homes where I was taking her for playgroup. And I actually had another idea of another town where I was going to set the story initially, and I just thought, it's too far away. I don't have the time to both write the book and travel to those places. So and this area is so beautiful, and it's so it is, especially in the wintertime, it's so lush. Do you still have me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure.
You sound crystal clear.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so this is basically our neighborhood. I was just in Newburyport before I hopped on here, and it is. It's very classical New England. We have the marshes, we've got rivers, we've got little farm stands. We have no dearth of pizza places, little funny pizza places. We've got Market Basket. We've got Route One. We've got all our little funny things around here. And so that was the easy part. The hard part was things like I like figuring out what is it like to be a fashion model in New York City. I have no idea, and I reached out to all sorts of different places to tell me, how do they get paid? Like, how does anything work? And I couldn't get anybody to answer my question. So I keep expecting to get a letter saying, yeah, I'm a model and you completely got that all wrong. But I haven't gotten that letter yet. So
I was sold in the book. I was like, you know what you're talking about. So no problem. Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so the next question I have, I'm really excited to talk about this topic. It's probably the question I want to ask the most, and you briefly alluded to it, talking about haunting, but I want to talk about ghosts. And so throughout the story, almost every character encounters a ghost of some sort, whether it's their own history that haunts them, or even hints of the supernatural just sprinkled in there. I loved that. So you give readers both possibilities when they read the book. And a couple scenes that come to mind for me when I'm talking about ghosts was Alex comes back from India. She's going to her childhood home, and it's really hard for her to enter the bathroom. Even though the bathtub was moved out of the house, for obvious reasons, it's still hard for her to go in that bathroom. And so Alex says, I need to have a chat with my mom, or else I'm not going to be able to even step in this bathroom. And so she talks to her mom, and then the faucet sink just turns on by itself. So you get sprinkles of that like throughout the story, and it's just amazing. It's haunting. It's beautiful. And even the house that Alex inherits is on Killdeer Road. So let the title of that road sink in for a second. Killdeer Road. So you got a little bit of creepiness in there. So Alex, Elizabeth, my bad. I'm thinking of your character. Can you tell us why you chose to include elements of the supernatural and just the theme of ghosts in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really like the starting place of the whole book was I was traveling with my husband actually in Maryland on this little funny island called Smith Island, which is kind of remote. It's kind of cut off from the rest of culture. And I think that used to be a thriving community, but now it's kind of dying. People are leaving and not coming back. They have these beautiful homes, but people leave them and they kind of just look like shells, just empty shells of life out there. And it's lovely, but it's very haunting. And I just thought, I really want to write about a ghost or ghosts, but I wanted to write in a way that where the ghosts really reveal something important about the characters. And then that's where I came up with this theme of what does it really mean to be haunted? And I felt like, okay, we can definitely be literary about that and allude to an emotional kind of haunting. But since I'm me and I really love a good ghost story, I also really want to kind of capture a real ghost story and the idea that maybe there is something out there. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I wanted to tell a ghost story that my father-in-law was, that really told you something about the characters and their lives, like something really, really important. And I'm toying with the idea of spoilers here. So it's like, okay, no spoilers, but I do think I captured a really fundamental and important thing about the events in the book through a ghost. So I guess that's all I'll say about that.
You got that exactly right. And I just want to reiterate to everyone in the audience that the imagery and the diction that Elizabeth used in her book, it was just this like unnerving, ominous crescendo with even a storm, you know, so you have all those elements in there, and it was just perfect. So thank you so much for telling that story that way. And we are running out of time. So if anyone in the audience would like to step up on stage and ask Elizabeth a question, please feel more than welcome to. I do have one more question of my own, and then we will have to wrap up for the day. So this is your chance. I'm giving you all a chance to jump up here and say whatever you want to say to Elizabeth. And if not, I will continue with my next question, which is about the title of the book, The Ocean in Winter. So as you read the book, you come across frequent mentions of bodies of water, which we talked about before, which is ocean, rivers, marsh, all of that. And so I think you kind of start to realize that the title is more than significant in the novel. And I believe that it paralleled the emotions of the Emery sisters. Like the flow of the ocean, there's some really beautiful, calm moments. And then, of course, there's grief, loss, and sadness. So, Elizabeth, can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for the choice of the title, and then what the ocean has to do with the book?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first piece is just the setting, because Newburyport and Plum Island are the ocean, and then the other piece is that I felt like the ocean in winter it's such a different planet from the beach in summer. And I kept thinking, in the summertime, when you go to the beach, you're exposed, you expose your skin, you run around and laugh, and you're carefree, and you're with your friends, and you just enjoy it. But then if you go to the same exact location in the middle of the winter time, it's like the sky is gray and the water is gray and it's cold and it's quiet and you're introspective. It kind of sends you inside in a really particular way. I'm sort of inside yourself and inside your soul and inside your being in a way that is really, it's very particular. And I kind of can't even, I guess if I thought about it for a while, I can't think of any other place that's so completely different at two different times in the year. You are a different person when you're there in the summer versus when you're there in the wintertime. And I kind of felt like I was sending these girls to a point, these women, of introspection, that was as deep as I could get it, and so that they could face everything that has happened and all of their brokenness and all of their broken hearts and everything that's hurt them. It's like, look it in the face, name it, and think about it so that you are able to go to the next step. And I feel like that's the hopeful message about the book, is that it ends with a scene sitting on the beach in the springtime, and now the sisters are ready to engulf on the next piece of their lives. And that is the hopeful message, I think, of this book.
I love that. And we actually have someone from the audience who wants to ask you a question. So Debbie, if you want to go ahead and ask, go ahead.
Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Hi, Debbie. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I haven't finished the book yet, but I'm loving the conversation. I have a question. This must have been incredibly exhausting for you to write, in terms of the topics: trauma, suicide, grief, all those things. That's so heavy. How do you manage that with writing? I mean, do you actually cry when you're writing it, or do you pull back because you say, I can't do this to them, I can't let this happen? Or how does that work?
Well, that's a good question, Debbie. I guess for me, it's kind of cyclical. It kind of feels like I I go through and I write it, and I get down the basic events and the basic characters and the basic idea. And then as I kind of delve into it and I think about, no, this needs to be a little bit more real. This needs to be more clear. This needs to be better defined. And kind of as you chip away at it like that, you don't go, it's like you don't go straight from the middle of summer to the middle of winter. It kind of goes through stages. So there were pieces that were hard. It was definitely hard talking about Riley and kind of what she's put her own son through. That was hard. But otherwise, it feels like I kind of cycle in, like I'm circling the story before I come in for a landing. So you do kind of work it out, but it's hard. It's definitely a challenge.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And one last thought then is, so in my personal family, we have 3 siblings, and we had experienced some trauma when we were younger. And it is so amazing to look back now as adults at how it distinctly and differently affected our journeys in life. And I loved what you talked about earlier about the different dances that we do to the same experience. So I can really appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to finishing the book. Like I said, I'm in the midst of it now, but appreciate that. I think that's something maybe a lot of people can relate to. And yeah, so I'll get off the stage now, but thank you. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Well, thank you so much for joining today, Debbie, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks so much, Debbie. We have a couple closing questions before we end today. And just another reminder, if anyone in the audience wants to step up on stage, please don't hesitate to do so. So, Elizabeth, what's next on the horizon for you? Are there any projects that you can share with us or anything you're excited to talk about?
Yeah, I'm working on 2 different projects right now that are so different, but they're really interesting. One is a murder mystery about a young man who goes missing, and actually, this one is set more in a town that's similar to where I actually live. So it's a town with woods and a pond and and all kinds of weird history and strange things afoot. And then the other piece is a retelling of Cinderella, where you learn that Cinderella's mother was actually really good friends with the stepmother when they were children, and that friendship actually saved her life, saved Cinderella's mother's life, and also ended up kind of shaping a lot of things. And then also P.S. Cinderella, it turns out that she's in fact the queen of a distant nation, or not a queen, but a princess of a country, but she had no idea. So that's just a little tidbit.
I love that. I can't wait for both of those stories. I will pre-order the mystery one because that's my favorite genre. So I'm so excited for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Of course. And where can fans find you on social media?
Oh, I'm at Elizabeth de Veer author on Facebook and Instagram. And you can always drop me a note. Go to elizabethdeveer.com, and there's a little form there if you have a question, or if there's anything, if you want me to send you a bookmark, go send me an email and I will send it your way.
Thank you. And is there anything else you want to share with the audience that we haven't talked about today?
Oh, no, nothing in particular, but just thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. This is such a neat platform, and it's been so nice to share my story with you. And thank you so much for your patience with the technical difficulties.
No worries at all. This is the age of COVID, so we are all used to it, and I expect it. You just move on and it's all good. But thank you so much for joining us today. Your insight into your book is incredible, and the writing was phenomenal. You are a fantastic writer. So everyone needs to get their copy of The Ocean Winter. Again, you can go to the fortune cookie in the middle of the screen. And for anyone who's interested, Elizabeth is a Novel Network member, so she can come and join your book clubs and you can talk all about this book. It really is the perfect book club read. It has all story elements that we talked about, and even the sisters themselves. It's a good discussion to talk about. So make sure to think about that if you can. And if you want to hear more about Elizabeth, Susan, or me on Fireside, you can click on our photo icons and follow us. So anytime that we're in a show, you'll get a notification right away and you can jump on with us. And if you aren't familiar with Adventures by the Book, check out our website. Again, you can click on the fortune cookie in the middle of the screen and it will take you there. And we have very exciting events that we're looking forward to in 2023 coming up. We have Superbook, which is a live event in San Diego with 20 authors. Yes, Superbook, not Super Bowl. It's better than that. And we also are doing Pitch Fest, which is a virtual adventure, free. So get your ticket right now. And you can hear about the perfect reads for 2023 and pick your next books, and like a speed dating type of thing, but with authors. So very fun. And again, we want to thank you, Elizabeth, for taking the time to chat with us today and for working through the technical difficulties. We apologize for any. And until next time, what's your next adventure by the book? Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.